la casa y duermo del lado derecho en la cama. No le he contado, pero me siento así, que sigue siendo así. Díselo, díselo, díselo.
기본 무브라도 이걸 붙여서 연속으로 이어서 하면 고세 무브가 될 수 있는 거지. 좀 전에 본 루이스 안드레아 용도 1번 삐싸, 2번 온다, 3번 까이다. 기본적인 무브들의 연결이라고. 오늘의 주인공 마사오세의 이야기를 들어볼까?
Most famous one is cabeza. Cabeza technique, boom. I do lanzamiento de cadera. For example, and body weight. Lanzamiento de cadera, caída. Caída to body weight. This is like a bachata essential combination that I don't remember a routine, but I do connect to movement. Today we want to teach how to make a transition from some techniques, two techniques in the middle. Okay? Just blocking the down part, and this movement is just upper way. Okay? Boom. Up.
The contraction, my weight is still forward, so I don't ever go back on my heel. You have to use these muscles here and the bend through the legs to control here.
Chest in, without moving along the shoulder. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make a contraction. 1, 2, 3, up, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So 7, 8 is a preparation. Okay? The difference between bachata and bachata essential is a preparation. Bachata essential is always 2 count, meaning whenever you do pinza or bachata essential technique, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. So bachata essential needs 2 counts to make a transition from traditional bachata to essential movement. Okay? But normal bachata, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 count is enough. But in essential bachata, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So in this case, let's make a prep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8. Make a contraction. 1, 2, 3, and up. 5, 6, 7, 8. 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is this, okay? Then we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, and up. 5. So now I fusion. Make 2 different things. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is easy because I finish pinza movement first, and then I move into cabeza movement. Yes? But the thing that we are going to try is in the middle pinza, I'm switching to cabeza. Take a look. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, and 3, 4. You see the difference? So I don't finish this pinza because now chest is in, and I switch to the cabeza, to the head roll. So the pinza point is here. You make a chest in, right? And also, when you do the cabeza head roll, you make the chest in. So we found some common place on pinza and cabeza preparation. So you can use this pinza as a preparation of head roll. It makes sense? now I transfer, but I don't transfer because this is counterbalance. Yeah? Counterbalance. And when she's starting the contraction, I switch my weight to the left, like this one. And then open the chest, and she can make this movement and take a time with this one. Whenever you have a contraction, and if she moves her weight from here to here, it's too late. Okay? When her weight is still this one, I switch to this one, opening the chest. Yeah? This is also the basic movement bachata sensation. This is called lanzamiento de carga. Boom, boom, bam, boom, bam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have here contact, okay? And I will pull in and send it to this side. Yeah? And 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use hands today, right? Okay? Only today. 5, 6, and 7, 8.
Here. Yeah, we're attached to the right hip bone here. Okay, so it's not the front, it's just off to the side, and we offer the contact with the hips. And then I bring this up. So I bring myself up with the hip forward, and then I go round, and then keeping the weight on the front. Okay, so I keep my weight on the balls of the feet as I come round with the hip, and I stay up with the chest as well. I don't want to come here, yeah? Or back on the hips, on the heels, sorry. So I come up, around, and then stay forward and up to control myself. Around, back onto this leg, and then down. Here, this is for everyone. I want to stay on this leg for as long as possible whilst I do the hip motion. So a lot of people want to come straight. But what we want to do is want to come down on this leg, okay? So I'm still off this other leg, the working leg, and then I bring the hips into this pendulum swing here, still with most of my weight on this leg, on the supporting leg. Now once I finish this motion, I can then transfer the weight and come through the upper body there, okay? So you can just swing the hip like this without having to transfer, yeah? Gak. So we send, transfer, and chest, yeah?
So a lot of guys I saw in Spain is switch like this. Your left knee goes into the circle and it looks ugly, okay? So you open, still keep opening the left and do this cool movement. All straight, not also cool. So having the chest out and good lunge. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and contra cadera. Yeah? The basic way of doing lanzamiento cadera starts with this hip motion. Yeah? So the hip goes in, and for me, out. Out, and send it here. Yeah? And coming back. Okay? 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. That would be very simple way. That the one technique finished, and the other technique starts. Okay? But today I'm gonna teach cutting in the middle and starting the next one. So we have 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2. When she's here, I start 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Your hip will be automatically slightly going this way. I use this hip in to the thing that you did.
This leg, 1, 2, and then transfer the weight.
The weight transfer should be very minimum, and the cabeza movement should be very small. So instead of doing this cabeza and doing this lanzamiento, I will do just small cabeza but big lanzamiento de la cadera. Yeah? So it feels like we are doing nothing, but actually we are doing 3 techniques in just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah? And Bachata Essential techniques only 16 techniques, so you guys done like 20% of the technique done with this combination. Yeah, it's very efficient. 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so 3 techniques in one combination.
Solo pensando quién falló. Dime si tú.
The beauty of Bachata Essential is always that you don't need to stick to the count. Yeah? You can change the count depending on the song. I will dance like super low here and suddenly boom. And again slow and suddenly boom. Boom. So you don't need to stick to the count. Yeah?
사회 수업에서 느낀 점은 뭐였냐면 그냥 이 컨비네이션 하나 외우고 배우는 게 중요한 게 아니라 생각해봐 16개의 기본 테크닉이 있는데 이걸 이런 식으로 쪼개고 나누어서 붙이면 수많은 패턴이 탄생할 수 있어 나만의 뉴 패턴 말이야
Only with my intention. It's like, okay, concentrate circle. Okay, concentrate circle. But look my hands. Look my hands. Because my leading is not all the time. My leading is before preparation, after preparation. Here and here. After this,
I complete.
the lady have all the information. Up to you, ladies. You control your quality because you control your quality. Okay. So when you do bigger, it's the same. I lead her bigger, but I not force her. This is a problem when you do this because maybe you are making a mistake with her balance. Okay.
Then when I feel the hand is behind me, that's her question. If the hand is behind, I try to connect with this hand. I don't try to do this. Because if he wants to keep the connection and I escape and make a space between us, we break this connection. Okay?
We are going to chain from chest to hip. This chain is a little bit difficult.
It's the opposite.
When the chest is forward, what happens with your belly? It's back. Why? Because if you remain forward, you fall forward. The same back. If you go with the chest back and the bottom back, you fall. The same to the side. If you go with everything to the side, you fall. So all the time your body is making the balance automatically. You don't have to think about this so much. But this is a very good tool for me and for my mind. When the lady is back with the chest, where is her hip? It's forward. So this is a very good information for me. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So, for example, when I'm doing the circle and the lady start going from back to forward, I know the lady is going to forward, from forward to back with the hip. So pay attention. I'm doing this. Tack. In the moment the lady is here, I know the lady is with the hip forward. I start connecting and entering in the lady's hip level.
So my chest is back and this is forward is the best moment to connect because it's closer to you. If you try to connect with the ladies with the chest, the hip back, it's very separated. So you need to use the moment we are like the most close possible with the hip. Okay?
Ladies, this is his work, not yours.
You
Okay?
only flow.
For you, only relax and continue your movement.
And listen.
Our part, this one, because now connect, you take the lady's energy here and then going back is easier. Okay? Okay?
Because it's not a stretch, you are like entering the hip, and this is a small circle, small concentric circle. But this is not the way. Now we are doing a big one. So you need to transfer from the chest when the knees are bent, and then you need to stretch for the hip roll in for the circle in the hip. So you understand? You are transferring from unlocked moment to an extra stretch moment for use your maximum wideness of hip roll. Okay?
And the second one changing.
Look, it's important. Look, this is the key moment. He's transferring the weight back, so my weight is in here. If you push me here, I'm already in this point. So you need to transfer the weight in this point to this moment to be able to go back. Back or forward for the leaders. But what I mean, if you want so if you want to go in this direction, you need to stay.
One, two, three, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Basic or throw. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, 6, 7. Basic 1, 2, and 3. Or.
Tú y yo como las horas, nos fuimos y vinimos una vez y otra vez y me enredé.
Es aburrido porque no estás aquí.
2, 3, 4, 5. No more pinza. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Normal cabeza. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. Tap. 5. Lanzamiento de carrera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we combine everything. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Step, tap, step, tap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you very much.